Hello, friends, and welcome into Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast, Week 16 ranks for quarterbacks and for tight ends. Your big decisions are here. Every decision is absolutely critical, and hopefully we'll be able to help you get into the right space for quarterbacks and for tight ends. Joining me today, I'm Chris Welsh, is Pat Fitzmaurice. It's a duo show, just us finishing out the year with the ranks for your playoffs, as we're going to talk about both of these spots. And quarterbacks and tight ends both have a lot of weird ranges this week, Pat. On your level of you're willing to get cute to I will just play the chalk in the name, where do you think you lie just as an overarching quarterback and tight end this week? Like, are you looking to play these big upsides, or you just want to get a few points out of those tight ends? And really, that's a little bit more of a quarterback question, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're not... I guess you could have just come out, Welsh, and asked me about Anthony Richardson directly. And and it's funny because I think Richardson is like certain personalities of fantasy managers, just like, don't play him, man. Like, if you're one of these mincing fraidy cat people who just could not live with an 8-point Anthony Richardson game, like, don't even consider starting him. But like, if you are a swashbuckler, go
Gunslinger.
for it, man. I mean, like, yeah. You know, there is anytime Anthony Richardson goes out there, there's 25-point upside because of his running ability. You know, he could give you 3 rushing touchdowns. So, like, he is the sort of player, like, I'm especially Welsh, if I'm an underdog by, you know, the projected points have me down by 6 or more points. Heck yeah, I will throw Anthony Richardson in there. And if he lays an egg, so be it. I'm happy to shoot for the moon if I need to.
Where do you have him? Where do you have Richardson this week?
Right now, I've got him 15. Okay. And right. I mean, that feels like it might be too low. I might end up moving him up a few spots, but it's probably going to settle in somewhere between, 13 and 15.
Yeah, he's not on the big board of what we're going to do with quarterbacks here, but I was curious because I think the debate in the streaming quarterback world is fine. I think there's like a lot of different angles to this. It's like when you're not in the playoffs, you're on a week to week basis, and you've got 2 or 3 quarterbacks. Let's say it's like you've got Jordan Love and you've got Anthony Richardson, and then you're playing around. You're like, all right, matchup to matchup. But then you get down to if I lose and I screw around, I'm done. That's where I feel a little less likely to be more of a gunslinger. But I think the question is still valid. Hey, guys, I have Jordan Love and I have Anthony Richardson. What do you think? The problem or the bigger debate question, I think, comes when you have an elite player with a bad matchup. I am clearly alluding to Lamar Jackson, which I know is going to be a heavily asked question this week. So let's go to the big board. Quarterbacks here for the rankings we have over at fantasypros.com/rankings. You can see the ECR expert consensus ranks of all of the rankers that do our contest. This is what it spits out for the average. The expert consensus rank is Josh Allen at 1, Jalen Hurts at 2, Lamar Jackson is at 3, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, that's your top 5, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Sam Darnold, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy at 10, Jared Goff at 11, and Bo Nix at 12. So we have been getting this question for weeks. And I've pretty steadily stated that A, I'm not playing Lamar Jackson, regardless of the matchup. B, I actually also think he is going to break the Steeler curse this week. But C, I understand why people are asking the question. Lamar Jackson stinks against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has never had a 3-touchdown passing day. He's never had over like 260 passing yards. He's on average under 200 yards passing. I think he's thrown more picks than touchdowns, and he has a 2-5 record. He stinks against them, typically. And people have been asking nonstop, should I start ... over Lamar? I will not. If you have Jalen, or if you have Josh Allen, I will start him over. I'm not doing it. But the last point of it is I understand hindsight is going to give people power. I say, I personally am not going to start Baker Mayfield over Lamar Jackson. And Baker Mayfield may finish higher, may finish a lot higher. And I hope I'm not wrong about that. But hindsight is going to give people that power. But Lamar Jackson is having an MVP-like season. He's coming off of a 5-touchdown week. I myself could not sleep at night benching Lamar Jackson, and he breaks that curse and playing Sam Darnold against Seattle over him, even though those aren't the worst options, or Baker Mayfield. So it's a heavy stance that, like I said, unless he is quarterback 1 or 2, everyone's going to have the power of, you idiot, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. I'll throw it to you because I know like Erickson agrees with me. I think P agrees with me. We're all kind of in that spot and we're susceptible to the criticism when Lamar Jackson stinks, but I rank him at 3. He is 3 in ECR. How are you handling the Lamar Jackson struggles versus the Steelers situation this week?
So Josh Allen is the QB1 without question. I have Welsh. I have Lamar Jackson ranked QB2. I could see ranking him QB4 and putting him behind Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow.
Love Joe Burrow this week too.
Yeah, and if you wanted to start Hurts or Burrow over Lamar, if you somehow faced that situation in a 1 QB league, I'd be okay with it. If you were terrified by the track record of Lamar Jackson against Mike Tomlin's Steelers, I get it. But like I'm willing to keep going to Lamar Jackson. He's at least giving you some pretty good floor game. There haven't been too many abject disaster games for Lamar against the Steelers. And he still has that 30-plus point ceiling, even in this matchup. So I'm continuing to run him out there. I would not entertain the idea of starting Baker Mayfield over him, of starting Sam Darnold over him, of starting Kyler Murray over him.
Jaden Daniels was a big one. I think that's come up multiple times too, which I would not do. Jaden Daniels does not have a great matchup against the Eagles. In fact, we have a star rating on our ranks. It is the worst rated matchup of the top 12 quarterbacks. Yeah. It's a 1-star rating out of it. So Daniels has been a very popular one I've seen because I don't think people are, there are some, but I don't think people are like really, really considering like Kyler Murray, even though it's against Carolina, over Lamar Jackson. Maybe they are, but Jaden Daniels is one I have actually seen people bringing up and just, hey, going down with the ship. And maybe the floor will be good enough with some of those other options. It's a tough one, but I say that in that I think the questions when you bring up like Anthony Richardson or you start talking about, I don't want to sound like I'm talking down, but like getting cute with quarterbacks, I think it's easier to do when you get into that like lower range. So some of that lower range we're talking about are ECR 9, 10, and then we're going to go one outside. Jordan Love. You have Jordan Love, who is ECR 9. I'm at ECR. You have him a little bit lower. So you told me you have Anthony Richardson at 15, so you don't have Richardson over him, but you move Jordan Love out of the top 12 of QBs. Do you think that line where you could be like, Richardson's rushing upside is actually a little bit better, you could see yourself starting him over Jordan Love?
Yeah, as an underdog, I probably would do that. Like if I went into a game, there is one game where I'm going in as like a double-digit underdog, and it's a super flex league, and my quarterbacks are set. I don't have a choice like this to make, but like if I had the choice at QB2 between Anthony Richardson and Jordan Love in that game, I would play Richardson because I feel like I need to land some sort of haymaker in that game as a 10-point, 12-point underdog. How much are the Green Bay Packers going to need to throw in a home game against the New Orleans Saints where they are favored by 14 or 14 and a half points in Green Bay in late December, where it's probably going to be like 20 to 25 degrees outside, maybe not ideal passing conditions.
Isn't that summer for you guys over there?
Also, the Saints defense, 12th in DVOA against the pass, 30th in DVOA against the run. Jordan Love hasn't thrown 30 passes in a game, Welsh, since week 9. He has averaged 23 pass attempts over his last 5 games. The Packers have now passed the Pittsburgh Steelers to become the second run heaviest team in the league behind only the Eagles. The Packers have run the ball on 51.2% of their offensive snaps this season, and they've only become more run heavy as the season has gone on. On the other hand, Welsh, I guess I could envision a scenario where Jordan Love throws 20 passes and still gets 260 yards and 3 touchdowns. So like that's the part I could see, just because this is a game where I expect the Packers to sort of mop the deck with the Saints. And I don't just say that as a Packers homer. I think this is going to be easy pickings for them. I just worry that it's going to be like a 40 carry game for the combination of Josh Jacobs, Chris Brooks, Emmanuel Wilson, where they just take turns battering away at this bad Saints run defense.
Yeah, I was almost going to say, like, one of the things about that, Packers pass game might be just they've been so effective running with Josh Jacobs. It might not even be so much about like, hey, we don't want love to be doing this or we can't do this. It's just we're doing great with the running. And this is another matchup for that. Another in the land of Homer would be my 49er guy, Brock Purdy. He is ECR 10. I am at 10. But guess what? I'm not the homer here because you are higher with Brock Purdy this week, which I also kind of agree with. I think even talking about this out loud, I think I want to put Purdy above Love, so I'll move up to 9 in one spot. But it's a pretty good situation for the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is a George Kittle week. It was a prediction of mine. I also think Juwan Jennings, I guess as I usually do, will kind of eat. We know Deebo Samuel will never. But you like Brock Purdy in this, and you got a pretty strong rank for him.
Yeah, and I understand why people might feel a little skittish about Purdy after that egg he laid last week against the Rams. Welch, have you seen these splits in Brock Purdy's career games in the rain?
In the rain. I thought you were going to do the home road where he's like one of the best quarterback ratings on the road and he's one of the worst at home. No, give me some rain ones.
Oh, in the rain. Like, I don't have them in front of me, but I mean, he has been terrible in rain games. Someone posted something about that on Twitter this week, and I'm sorry I can't give proper credit because I forget who that was, but like his past performances in the rain, just not good. So if we had rain in the forecast for Miami this weekend, I'd certainly be backing off this QB1 ranking for Purdy. But I did check the forecast, Welsh, no rain, partly cloudy in Miami. Should be pleasant.
71 projected.
Yes. Yeah. And now, I realize Purdy's thrown a couple of clunkers at us. He also had 94 yards and no touchdowns against the Bills in week 13, then 142, no touchdowns against the Rams last week. Through the first 12 games of the season, however, Brock Purdy was QB7 in fantasy points per game at 19.5, averaging just under 20 points a game. Not having left tackle Trent Williams has hurt. And I don't know if Williams is going to be back this week with the ankle injury. And obviously, Deebo Samuel has been struggling. It's a tough matchup on paper. Miami's given up the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks this season, but the Dolphins are pretty tough against the run too. So I don't think the 49ers are going to be able to just batter away with Isaac Guerrero this week. I think they need offensive balance. I do think Brock Purdy bounces back this week, Welsh.
Yeah, I'm with that pretty in general. On the season total, this is one of those, again, it's like the season total is really dramatic against quarterbacks. Over the last month, it's kind of pared down a little bit. It's a little bit more median. 49ers are going to have to pass the ball. They really have not done any mass passing as of recent, and I think that is going to be the only way that they're going to end up winning this game if they can. They are underdogs, I believe. I believe the Dolphins are 1 to 1.5. Yeah, so this is Purdy plays better on the road. It's a bright and sunny, clear game. I think that's a really good spot. Love George Kittle, love Juwan Jennings in here. If they can set up the run, it'll set up the play action. And I'll probably be looking at Purdy plus 2 touchdowns. Also, just the ineffectiveness of the Dolphins in general. If they're going to give time of possession to the 49ers, that's going to benefit for, Brock Purdy was one of the biggest passing quarterbacks at the beginning of the year. They've got to get back to that. I don't know. They still believe they're playing for something. They're most likely not. But I think this is a pretty good spot for Brock Purdy. The other quarterback is a quarterback not in the top 12. Big week last week. We're going to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is ECR 16. Devontae Adams had a huge game in here. What are your thoughts on, I guess we call this like the streaming option of Aaron Rodgers this week?
Yeah, I know you're a little higher on him than I am, Welch, and I get it. Like, I feel like I should maybe be a couple spots higher on him. I've got him at QB 16. And right now I've got him directly behind Anthony Richardson, who we talked about, and Justin Herbert. And I'm starting to second guess myself on that Justin Herbert ranking, given his recent trajectory. So yeah. I might move Rodgers up ahead of Justin Herbert. Aaron Rodgers is QB5 in fantasy scoring over the last 2 weeks. And he has thrown multiple touchdown passes in 3 of his last 4 games. Including a season-high 3 against the Jaguars last week. He and his old buddy Devontae Adams have just been absolutely cooking lately. And this could actually be a shootout against the Rams. The Vegas total for Jets-Rams is 46.5 points. Welsh, I can't remember a higher total for a Jets game recently. Those totals have been pretty low, and this one is, hinting that we could see some points in this game. So not only Devontae Adams, he's got Garrett Wilson. The Rams have allowed the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. Like it's a pretty good spot. If you're thinking of streamers, Aaron Rodgers is right up there.
And that's where I'm with it. Also throw out over the last month, the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks the Rams have given up. So it's an even better spot. If you're in that world of like, I'm not doing Aaron Rodgers over Lamar, but if you're in that world of like, hey, I got Herbert, or I've got Bo Nix, and should I put Rodgers in? It's a pretty good spot. Let's go over to tight ends here. The tight end ranks on the big board. We've got Trey McBride at number 1, Brock Bowers, George Kittle, that's chalk. Jonnu at 4, Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, Travis Kelce falls all the way to 7 with the worries of Carson Wentz, except I do think I saw that Patrick Mahomes was a full participant in practice, so that might make an adjustment. Mark Andrews, Tucker Kraft, Pat Freiermuth, Hunter Henry, Brenton Strange. Let me just ask you that on Travis Kelce, ECR 7. I have him at 6. You have him at 10. Clearly looks like you were ranking him for Carson Wentz. Is that true? And if we have Patrick Mahomes starting, does he move up for you?
I had him at 11 when I thought it was going to be Carson Wentz, and I only moved him up 1 spot with the likelihood of Patrick Mahomes starting this game, Welsh. Travis Kelce hasn't scored a touchdown since week 10 and has 2 touchdowns all season. Over the last 5 weeks, Travis Kelce is tight end 20 in half-point PPR fantasy points per game with 6.6. Teammate Noah Gray has averaged 11.7 half-point PPR fantasy points over the same stretch, nearly doubling the point total for Travis Kelce. And this week he faces the Texans, who've allowed the 4th fewest receiving yards and 8th fewest fantasy points to tight ends this season. I don't think the Chiefs are going to have a pass-happy game plan with Patrick Mahomes playing on a high ankle sprain. So the likelihood of Mahomes airing it out 40 times, pretty minimal. I don't like this outlook for Kelce at all, Welsh. And it seems weird that you could be going into a fantasy playoff game thinking about starting guys like, I don't know, Brenton Strange. Who else could we possibly start over? Or Travis Kelce, Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth. I'd consider it, man. I don't like the outlook for Kelce at all. And it hasn't been happening for him. And I don't know if we get a dramatic turnaround this week.
He's looked bad, and that's more where I sit. Like, he just hasn't looked good, and I totally acknowledge that. I will say one adjustment. You talked about the defensive prowess of the Texans versus tight ends on the year, but over the last month, they've actually given up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends over the last month as of recent. Multiple touchdowns in there. Now, if I just thought like, oh, it's like old school Travis Kelce, and I only cared about the month, I'd probably rank Kelce at like 3 or 4. But I don't, because I agree with you. He's looked slower. He doesn't have as much involvement in the offense as we've seen in the past. We don't see insane target ranges. But, if Patrick Mahomes is a little bit hurt and playing down, maybe you're going to have shorter leverage throws, maybe sitting in the pocket less, and that might benefit too. Maybe it's Noah Gray, but Travis Kelce. So I just kind of came from a rank middle standpoint where I don't view him as a lock. He's doesn't exist in the world of Trey McBride and Brock Bowers and George Kittle. He doesn't live in that world. But I still have him kind of high-ish because the matchup isn't as bad as we think. If Mahomes is there, that's still going to get some of the target share, but he's just not a lock. I personally am not going to go and put Brenton Strange over him, but if you want, Mark Andrews and the touchdown equity, that makes sense. Pat Freiermuth, honestly, has been better. I'm okay with those, but I still rank Travis Kelce high-ish. But I agree with your sentiment. Like, you might be in the week 16 and you're not starting Travis Kelce is weird. There are some decent options. Brenton Strange would be one of those if you're, especially full PPR, why you could make that adjustment. I'm just not doing it. Do you have Strange over Kelce?
I do. Should we talk about Brenton Strange for a second?
Please throw it.
Because I think his ECR, I want to say, is like tight end 12.
Yeah, he is.
And I've got him tight end 8. I have been struggling with this one, Welsh. Like, he's a hard player to rank. So, all right, last week, Strange had 11 catches for 73 yards against the Jets on 12 targets, but his longest reception went for 9 yards. 11 catches. He did not have a reception of 10 yards or longer. He is playing the same sort of security blanket role that Evan Engram played for both Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones earlier in the year, where it's just all these short area targets within about 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. There is an excellent chance that Brenton Strange is going to get you at least 5 or 6 receptions this week. But the probable stat line for Brenton Strange is probably something like 6 catches for 44 yards. Like the floor is relatively sturdy, but the ceiling is probably pretty low. And I think Strange is a more attractive option for fantasy managers if they're favored in their matchup. If you are a 10-point underdog in your matchup and need to land a couple of haymakers against your opponent to pull off a win, I don't think Brenton Strange is the guy who's going to land those haymakers.
Yeah, and I would say, like, I think he's just a good streaming option, but I don't think that stream is over, the Freiermuths, the Andrews, the Krafts, the Kelces. I think it's like, oh, hey, guys, I had Kate Otten, or I had Kyle Pitts, or I have Jake Ferguson. Like that, I would go with Brenton Strange. But I think there are just some clear-cut tiers, some big tight end questions, and I think at the end of the day, there's going to be 1 or 2 people that are just like, here are my 3, it's Stone Smart, it's Brenton Strange, it's Dalton Kincaid. What do I do? That's probably going to be a lot of the questions that we're going to see outside of the core tight end. So if that is the case, we got you covered Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to be doing our live stream here on Fantasy Pros, youtube.com/Fantasy Pros. We are literally just going to have an hour of answering your questions. So you can bring your big playoff and week 16 questions to that stream, 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Go to YouTube, wherever you're listening. Even if you're on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and put notifications. If you're not, go there, subscribe, notifications on, and you can even hit remind me for the episode so you do not miss it. That is it, my friends. Thank you so much for hanging out with us the whole season long, too. Unfortunately, our record time goes up against Christmas next week, so we don't have the ranks next week, but we do have start and sit and all of that. So this is the final show of the season with me and Pat. Pat, thank you so much for having me on. This is my first full time into this show for the year, so I hope I made it easy transitionally and people enjoyed listening to it, and just want to thank you for all your great work on it this year.
Welsh, you have been an excellent helmsman throughout the season, so thank you for hosting it. It's been a blast doing the show with you every week, and thanks to all our listeners and viewers for checking in with us all season long.
And thank you to Scott Pianowski for joining us all season, Mick Chilella, and for Billy Muzio. Those were our rotation of rank guys that have been hanging out with us. So as we bid adieu to the rank episodes, we do not for everything else. Good luck in your playoffs. Make sure you're locked here to Fantasy Pros because we got you covered and we're going to help you out. For Pat Fitzmaurice, I am Chris Welsh. We love you guys. We'll talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros.